Hey guys, tonight we travel back to a time without screens, without blinking toys, without batteries, apps, or trampoline parks. A time when fun wasn't scheduled, it was stumbled into. Welcome to medieval childhood, where entertainment was homemade, usually muddy, and occasionally cursed. And fair warning, you probably wouldn't survive this. The day begins early, not modern early. Rooster hasn't crowed and your blanket is made of straw early. You wake up with cold toes, a runny nose, and a tunic that smells like wet goat. But none of that matters, because you're a kid in the Middle Ages, and the world outside is calling. Now, before we dive too deep into dirt and dragon sticks, I need to warn you about something important. A lot of folks have told me that YouTube randomly unsubscribed them without notice. Just double check that red button below and make sure you're still subscribed. Okay? I don't want you to miss any of the strange and sleepy stories we've got coming. And since you're already down there, hit that like button. It helps me way more than you'd think. Also, drop a comment and tell me, where are you watching from and what time is it there? I love hearing from every amazing listener in this cozy little community we've built. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit up on your straw mattress. It's lumpy. It smells weird. Something may or may not be moving inside it, but that's fine. You stretch, scratch your elbow, splash your face with freezing water from a clay jug, and throw on yesterday's tunic, which is also today's tunic, and probably tomorrow's too. No one's telling you to check the weather, or finish your math homework, or feed the dog and take out the recycling. Your only job? Grab the bucket, head to the well. Try not to spill, because on the way back, you'll see the others, and that's when the real day begins. The village is barely awake. A few wisps of chimney smoke curl into the sky. Chickens squawk at shadows. A neighbor waves, elbow deep in turnips. The blacksmith sneezes so loudly it startles a pig. This is your morning soundtrack. Clanging, oinking, clucking, sniffing. You hear footsteps, fast ones. Someone's already rolling a bent wood hoop down the road with a stick, shouting something about a frog. King, another kid, swears he saw a ghost in the baker's chimney. You drop your bucket and follow them into the field, heart pounding. This is playtime, and it doesn't matter what the game is. Chasing frogs, throwing rocks at tree trunks, seeing who can keep their hand in a cold stream the longest. Everything becomes a contest. Everything is fun. Sure, this world is rough. No antibiotics, no dentists, no snack bars shaped like cartoon tigers. But right now, you're happier than any kid with a tablet, because you're outside, covered in dirt, running full speed toward a patch of grass where something amazing might happen. You pretend your stick is a sword. Someone else calls their stick goat stabber. A third kid is wearing a pot lid as armor. Someone becomes Sir Smelly of the Mud Realm. The battle begins. It's chaotic. It's heroic. It's very, very loud. And when your mom shouts from across the field, you pretend you didn't hear. Of course you didn't. You're saving the kingdom from cursed potatoes. Eventually, a goat wanders through and ends the game. You all scatter, giggling, filthy, breathless. Later, you sneak into the kitchen and steal a chunk of black bread. Dry, tough, slightly burnt. Still, it's treasure. You share it like royalty with your fellow knights of the garden. You find a rock and declare it magical. Someone else claims it's haunted. Obviously, you now have a quest. Get it to the chapel steps before sunset, or turn into a mushroom forever. You run barefoot over roots and pebbles. Your feet are calloused. Your laughter echoes. The village bell rings noon, but you don't stop, because this isn't just running. It's playing. It's pretending. It's living. And in your world, that's sacred. The frog chase ends. Probably because someone accidentally stepped on the frog. No one admits it. And the frog hops off with a kind of exhausted dignity only a medieval frog can manage. But you don't dwell on it, because there's already a new idea bubbling in the group. Someone shouts, "Let's build a castle," which, in kid terms, really means, "Let's stack mud and sticks until it collapses or attracts chickens." You march toward the edge of the village, where old wood scraps and rock piles are fair game. This is the medieval version of a toy box. You and your friends gather materials: moss, cracked tiles, a sheep skull. Someone definitely shouldn't have picked up, but definitely did. Construction begins. The castle rises quickly. It has a moat, which is really just a trench you spit into. There's a drawbridge, a plank across a puddle, and a tiny mud throne that's already sinking under the weight of your smallest friend, who insists on being king. You don't argue, mostly because he has the only working slingshot. While you're shaping battlements out of mashed straw and soggy leaves, you hear it. The challenge. Another group of kids is approaching from the other side of the village path. They're armed, with pebbles, sharp glances, and a wheelbarrow that may or may not be stolen. The oldest one has a stick shaped like a sword, and a piece of cloth tied around his neck like a cape. It's red. Fancy. You don't speak. You just lock eyes. It's war. You scramble for pebbles, mud clods, even an old turnip. Someone tosses like a grenade. Your castle defenses hold for maybe 30 seconds before everything devolves into a full-on pebble war. Your heart pounds. You dive behind a bush. Someone lobs a pine cone that hits you square in the back. You scream, not from pain, but from theatrical betrayal. It's glorious. It's ridiculous. It's everything. This is what fun looks like when you invent it. There are no foam swords, no Nerf guns, no plastic helmets. Just kids, dirt, and the rule that if it hurts, you probably did it right. A rock whizzes past and knocks over a pail someone was wearing as a helmet. Everyone freezes for a second. The kid inside is fine. Mostly, you help him up. He grins. The game continues. Historians still debate just how much adult supervision kids had in medieval villages. Some say children were left to their own devices most of the time, especially in farming communities. Others argue that adults kept a closer eye than we think, just from the sidelines, letting the kids sort it out until someone cried loud enough to summon an adult with a broom. But one thing's certain: children learned social survival through play. Games weren't just silly. They were practice for alliances, for arguments, for storytelling, for getting hit in the shin and deciding not to cry in front of your crush. Eventually, the castle is flattened. Both sides agree to a truce. A goat eats the flag. You all collapse in the shade of a tree, panting, laughing, filthy. Someone pulls a piece of dry bread from their tunic and breaks it in half. You share it, even though it tastes like sawdust and old onion. It's the best thing you've ever eaten. Then, the storytelling begins. Because when kids aren't actively fighting or running, they're inventing. One friend starts telling a story about a knight who tames dragons using only cheese. Another adds a twist about a magical flute. Someone else insists there was a farting owl involved. The plot is a mess. The logic is non existent. The laughter is uncontrollable. You lean back, eyes squinting at the clouds. One of them looks like a goat. Another looks like a goat wearing a crown. You blink. It still does. And just like that, the game changes again. Someone declares, you all must choose animal personas for a new kingdom. You're assigned Royal Badger. You accept the title with honor. Someone else is the Honorable Cow. The smallest kid becomes Supreme Duck. You hold court beneath the tree, using a dandelion stalk as a scepter. Your subjects bow. One of them sneezes directly into the grass and is knighted immediately. A snail becomes an ambassador. A stick becomes an enemy kingdom. And no one questions any of it. Because the beauty of medieval childhood is this. Reality is flexible. One moment, you're hauling wood. The next, you're a wizard king. One moment, you're scrubbing mud from your knees. The next, you're defending a fortress made of cabbage leaves. Back at home, your parents are probably wondering if you've fallen into a well. But they know where you are, more or less. And as long as you return with all your limbs and only a mild limp, everything's fine. You sniff. You're not sure if you're starting to smell like goat or if the goat is just still standing too close. Either way, you don't care. The sun is overhead now. Your shadow looks like a warrior. Your arms are streaked with mud and glory. And the other kids? Still playing, still building, still pretending. This is the kind of day you'll remember, even if no one else does. Even if there's no parchment record of the Battle of the Mud Pie Castle. Because for a medieval kid, this is the real feast. A full day of laughter, freedom, and just enough danger to make it feel legendary. And best of all, there's still half a day left to play. You don't really notice the shift in time. One moment, you're a royal badger negotiating a peace treaty between the owl and the duck. And the next, the sun has crept just slightly westward, casting longer shadows on the dirt-packed village paths. Someone stands up and shouts, "Let's play Rattlebones!" Everyone perks up. Rattlebones is the kind of game that defies explanation. You're not entirely sure of the rules. And honestly, no one is. The name alone makes it sound either like a cheerful dice game or a mild exorcism. Turns out, it's both. One kid pulls a small leather pouch from his belt and spills the contents into his palm. Knuckle bones, real ones, from a sheep or a goat or something. You try not to think about it. They're smooth and polished, worn by dozens of grubby fingers. They're clinked together like dice, but the game has its own weird flow. Someone explains the rules again, but the rules change every time you play. Essentially, you toss the bones, shout a number, clap once, and try to grab as many as you can off the ground before they stop moving. That's mostly it. The important part is not the game itself. It's the intensity. You crouch low. The circle around you chants your name, or something like your name. Maybe it's just, hey you. Either way, you're in the spotlight. You throw the bones, they scatter. You lunge, you miss entirely, and face plant into the dust. Laughter explodes. You sit up, spitting out what might have been someone's chicken feather, and holding up one lone bone in triumph. You're declared champion of the day, because no one else really wants to play anymore. Victory. Games like this were common in the Middle Ages. Kids used whatever was around: pebbles, sticks, bones, even dried fruit, to make up their own versions of dice games, fortune telling, and light gambling. The lines between games of chance and structured play were pretty blurry, especially when the winner usually just got an extra bite of bread or the honor of being shoved in a wheelbarrow. Historians still argue whether games like Rattlebones were precursors to modern dice games or just random child chaos, but they pop up in records from across Europe, always described with vague admiration and mild fear. After Rattlebones, someone unearths a hoop and a stick. Yes, just a hoop and a stick. You'd think this would be boring. You'd be wrong. The goal? Keep the hoop rolling along the path by hitting it with the stick. That's it. But once everyone joins in, it becomes a race. You're dodging chickens, jumping over stray tools, swerving to avoid puddles, and old men who mutter about children and their cursed circles. It becomes a full-speed obstacle course. You're neck and neck with your friend as you round the corner near the baker's cottage. Your hoop hits a root, wobbles, veers into the wall, and bounces back into your shin with surprising violence. You fall. Again. You're fine. Probably. But this time, you're not the only one down. Two other kids trip over you and go tumbling like very muddy bowling pins. For a moment, there's silence. Then everyone bursts out laughing, because that's how these games go. You win some, you limp away from others. And now it's time for the stick-sword match. Everyone grabs the nearest acceptable stick. Not too brittle, not too leafy. A good, solid, swingable stick. You find one that's crooked and slightly damp. Perfect. There are no teams, no official structure, just a swirling storm of mock battle, full of yells, grunts, exaggerated slashes, and dramatic death scenes that would win awards. If awards existed, someone spins 3 times and collapses into a pile of hay, gasping, "Tell my goat I loved her." You lose track of your own storyline halfway through, switching from heroic knight to mysterious thief to cursed prince and back again. No one notices or cares. One kid yells, "Magic shield," and gets hit anyway. Someone else introduces a lava rule and jumps between stones, dramatically shrieking when they land on dirt. Another kid becomes the villain for no reason. He loves it. The battle escalates until a mother appears at the edge of the village, arms folded. Uh-oh. Everyone drops their sticks immediately. She raises an eyebrow and says, "No blood, no bruises." You all shake your heads, then carry on. The sticks return. The chaos resumes. And you realize something quietly wonderful. This isn't just fun. It's freedom. In a world where so much is decided for you. What you eat, what you wear, how many turnips you'll peel today. This is the one place where you decide everything. What the rules are, what the game is, who you're pretending to be, when the battle ends, when it begins again, even without toys, without books, without instructions. You've made something out of nothing. And for a medieval kid, that's the best kind of fun. The sun dips a little lower. A bell tolls faintly in the distance. You know you'll need to go home soon. There are still chores waiting. Maybe some soup. Maybe a scolding. But for now, you grip your stick sword. You look at your friends. And you scream the most sacred of all phrases. Last round wins. The last round becomes 4 rounds, then 6, then 11. Because in the medieval kid rulebook, which is, of course, entirely imaginary and ever-changing, last means until someone cries or it's dark. Eventually, though, the games dissolve, not with a dramatic finale, but with a slow, mutual unraveling. Someone gets hungry, someone else gets tired, and one unfortunate soul starts bleeding from a shin scrape no one remembers happening. He's fine. Probably. You stretch out on the grass near the edge of the commons. Your tunic is torn. Your stick sword has snapped in two. You've got mud in your ear and straw in your hair, but you're grinning like you just conquered a kingdom. Someone sighs and says, "Stool ball?" And just like that, the afternoon shifts gears. You all shuffle to the open area behind the granary, the flattest ground in the village. Someone produces a stool, the namesake of the game, and a wooden bat that looks suspiciously like a broken shovel handle. A stuffed leather ball appears from someone's satchel, lumpy and misshapen, but sacred nonetheless. Stool ball is a glorious mess of a game, part baseball, part cricket, part organized accident. The idea: one kid guards the stool, while the others try to hit them with the ball. If they miss and you catch it, you switch roles. If they hit the stool, everyone yells, and the round resets. No points, no score, just chaos. You're up first. You swing wildly and miss. The ball bounces off a rock, hits someone in the ankle, and they go down like a knight hit by a trebuchet. They're laughing. Everyone's laughing. It's one of those belly-deep laughs that makes your face hurt. You try again. This time, you make contact. The ball sails, flops, into the dirt, and the whole field erupts with yelling. A girl near the stool fumbles, trips, grabs the stool to balance, and knocks it over herself. Perfect. Game on. You play for what feels like hours. Kids rotate in and out, shouting over each other, making up new official rules every 5 minutes. One kid introduces a slippery ghost penalty. No one knows what it means, but it involves yelling "Whoa!" and spinning in place. You embrace it completely. Historians still debate whether stool ball is truly the origin of modern baseball. There are records of it being played as early as the 14th century, mostly by rural children and occasionally by bored adults. It was especially popular during Easter festivals, but kids, of course, found ways to turn it into an everyday ritual. And in your world, stool ball is king. It's a game you can play with anything. A stool, a bucket, even an unlucky goose if you're fast enough. It doesn't require rules, just energy, laughter, and a willingness to to take a leather ball to the face now and then, which you do twice. By the time you rotate out, your arms ache, your voice is hoarse, and your feet are coated in a mixture of grass, mud, and honor. You collapse into the grass again, panting. Someone lies next to you and says, "You hit like a monk." You grin. "Better than last time." They nod. Less screaming, too. And that's high praise in these parts. While you rest, others keep playing. You lie back, staring at the sky. The clouds drift lazily, shaped like dragons and bread loaves, and a goat that looks oddly familiar. Probably Bernard, the village escape artist. And in this quiet moment, you hear something else. A lute. Faint, distant, carried on the breeze like a rumor. Everyone pauses. Not because it's unusual. It's not. Music is part of the air in medieval life. But this particular lute sound, that means one thing. The traveling peddler is back. A figure appears near the road. Cloak billowing slightly. A sack of goods over one shoulder, and a lute slung casually over the other. You scramble up, heart racing, because this isn't just a merchant. This is entertainment. He sets up just outside the village square, and within minutes, a crowd forms. Kids in front. Naturally, he opens his sack and begins to pull out wonders. Small carved toys, colored stones, pieces of glass that catch the sun like magic. A carved chicken that lays an egg when you pull a string. A tin whistle. A cat-shaped comb. Everyone gasps. Then he plays. The lute song is silly and sharp, full of clever rhymes and goat jokes. You laugh so hard, your ribs hurt. At one point, he pretends to forget the words and lets the crowd fill in with nonsense. You shout, "Turnips!" And somehow, it fits perfectly. After the songs, come the riddles. He leans forward, eyes twinkling, and asks, "What has a head, no hair, a foot, no shoe, and slinks through the dirt where no man should go?" Silence. A few wild guesses. A demon. A priest's cousin. My uncle's toe. He laughs, shakes his head. The answer, he says, is a snail. Groans and laughter erupt. And then, because he's no fool, he tosses a handful of sweet nuts into the crowd. Chaos, joy, and maybe a minor bite over a walnut. But that's medieval kid life. The line between civility and mud wrestling is very, very thin. Eventually, he packs up. You wave goodbye like he's royalty. And in a way, he is. At least to you. Because when you live in a world without screens or speakers, one man with a lute is an entire festival. As he disappears down the road, someone leans toward you and whispers, "Let's pretend we're bards now." And just like that, you're off again. New game, new roles, same dusty road, and still not a single toy in sight. The moment the lute player vanishes down the road, the transformation begins. Someone ties a piece of frayed cloth around their head like a minstrel's cap. Another grabs a stick and pretends it's a lute. Bent, splintered, and barely holding together, but absolutely a magical instrument in the eyes of every child present. "I shall be the bard of the northern turnip," someone declares. "I'm the singing ghost of the goat barn," another adds, letting their voice waver dramatically. You, naturally, become Sir Ballad Thunderthroat, a title you invent on the spot with total confidence. And just like that, the village becomes your stage. You roam through the pathways, past the hay bales and the drying laundry, performing to invisible kings and queens. You belt out songs about dragons who eat too much cheese. You narrate the tragic tale of a chicken who wanted to be a priest. You even create a dramatic reenactment of the earlier stool ball game, which becomes much more heroic in your version, especially the part where you dived headfirst to save a stool from certain destruction. Your friends cheer, boo, applaud. Someone throws a piece of bread crust as a tip. You bow. It's not just silly, it's important. Because in this world, performance isn't just for nobles and bards. Even in medieval times, children played pretend, mimicking what they saw, imagining what they'd never see, and inventing what made no sense at all. Some games mirrored adult roles: blacksmiths, merchants, knights. Others, total fantasy. Historians still debate how much freedom peasant children had to be creative. Most agree that play was not only tolerated, it was essential, especially in the cold months when outdoor games slowed and the imagination had to pick up the slack. You and your friends wander from house to house, offering entertainment in exchange for apples, boiled sweets, or applause. One woman gives you a hard-boiled egg and a blessing. Another tells you to stop scaring her goose. You promise nothing. You perform the legend of the pickled saint, which starts off religious and somehow ends with 3 goats in a trench coat. The audience? 2 younger kids, 1 very confused cat, and a man trying to fix a broken wheel who pretends not to laugh. Eventually, your troupe settles near the well for a proper improvised play. A makeshift stage is built, a plank laid across, 2 buckets. The curtain? A large piece of canvas with a suspicious smell. You each take roles: hero, villain, narrator, enchanted shoe. Rehearsals are non-existent. The script is chaos. The excitement is real. You perform the entire thing with conviction. Dramatic voices, dramatic deaths, and dramatic wardrobe malfunctions. At one point, someone gets tangled in the curtain and topples the plank. Laughter explodes. No one's hurt, just more realistic. By the end, everyone's breathless and proud, because the show must go on, and go on it does. Once the theater ends, the energy shifts again. Your group drifts toward the square, still bubbling with ideas. Someone suggests a new game: pretend royalty. The idea is simple. You all draw lots, or rather, grab random pebbles from the ground. The person who draws the shiny one becomes the king or queen for the next hour. The rest become their court. The queen, today, is 7 years old and already terrifying. She demands everyone bow. She orders imaginary feasts. She names a rock her royal advisor and commands it be protected at all costs. You become the royal jester. Your job is to make her laugh or face beheading by feather. So naturally, you grab a chicken and start dancing. It works. Barely. Then you're promoted to Sir Soup Saver, Knight of the Soggy Spoon, an honor. You take your duties seriously. These pretend court games get elaborate. Roles change fast. Someone's knight becomes a traitor. Someone's advisor becomes a goose. The royal sibling stages a coup. and is exiled to the well. Through it all, you're creating a world. Rules, alliances, betrayals, jokes, and it all resets tomorrow. This is medieval play in its purest form. No toys, no parents directing the action, just kids making kingdoms out of mud and ego. Eventually, the queen is dethroned after demanding too many apples. She takes it well by dumping a bucket of water on her brother's head. He retaliates with a fistful of flour from the baker's stoop. It escalates. Suddenly, you're not nobles anymore. You're wild again. You run. The flour turns into clouds. In the air, mixing with dust and squeals and shrieks, you leap over puddles. You duck behind barrels. You hide in the hay cart and try not to sneeze. You're caught. You're tied to a post, loosely with a sash, and forced to confess your crimes. Against the crown, you say you stole a turnip. Everyone gasps. The turnip appears. You say it looked lonely. Everyone nods solemnly. You're released, knighted again, and given the honorary title of Sir Root Whisperer. It's the best day ever. You lie back again, watching the clouds. Your stomach grumbles. Someone pulls out a pouch of dried berries and shares. You eat, you rest, you plan the next scene, and you realize this world, as hard and harsh as it can be, always makes room for a little joy, a little fantasy, and a lot of ridiculous fun. Because when you're a kid in the Middle Ages, play is survival, and you're doing just fine. The make-believe monarchy finally dissolves around the time someone gets a splinter from the royal scepter, which was, of course, just a broken rake handle the entire time. With the queen deposed and the goose advisor waddling off uninterested, your kingdom dissolves in laughter and itchy tunics. You sit back against a tree stump, catching your breath, and someone leans over and says, "Let's go find the goose boy." Everyone groans, but they're smiling. The goose boy, the youngest apprentice in the village's flock, permanently followed by honking poultry and a general cloud of frustration. If there is one kid in the entire medieval town that begs to be lightly tormented, lovingly, of course, it's him. So, off you go. You pass through the edge of the commons and make your way toward the pastures. Sure enough, you spot him in the distance, arms outstretched, trying to coax a particularly stubborn goose out of a puddle. The goose is winning. "Oi," one of your friends calls. "How fares the goose court?" He doesn't answer, just glares in your direction. That's all the invitation you need. You descend. Now, let's be clear. Medieval mischief is an art form. This isn't mean-spirited bullying. This is ritualized chaos. The goose boy plays his part. You play yours. It's a tradition. You wait until he turns his back. Then begin the honk echo, a perfect imitation of the geese that causes total barnyard confusion. He spins, scowling. The geese scatter. One climbs into a cart and has to be bribed back out with a beat. You're all cackling. Then comes phase 2, borrowing his hat. The goose boy wears a floppy, oversized cap that might once have been green. It's an icon. It also makes a perfect flag, cape, or chew toy, depending on the game. One brave soul snatches it and runs. The chase begins. You run with the others, dodging barrels and buckets, laughing so hard your ribs hurt. He's fast, but not fast enough. especially with one goose still nipping at his heels. Eventually, the hat is returned, slightly muddier, slightly chewed, and the goose boy gets his revenge by smearing pig grease on the back of your tunic. When no one's looking, fair's fair. Historians still argue how much teasing and rough play existed among medieval children, and where the line between fun and foul lay. But evidence from letters, laws, and even plays of the time shows that kids engaged in routine pranking, name-calling, and playful sabotage. It was part of the culture, learning how to laugh, to poke fun, and to take it in return. And the goose boy, he gives as good as he gets. He joins your group afterward, even tells a joke about one of the geese wanting to join the monastery. You laugh. You don't entirely understand the joke. Still funny. You walk together through the outer fields, now united by your earlier chaos. Someone finds an abandoned cart and immediately suggests turning it into a rolling dragon. A few kids climb inside. One perches on the back with a stick as a tail, and someone else pulls the front with a rope. It tips every 5 feet. Nobody cares. You roar, tumble, and shriek until you crash into a haystack and call it a glorious dragon death. A goat watches, judging. By this point, your clothes are soaked, your knees scraped, your arms aching from all the laughing and flailing. But the day is far from done. Someone suggests building a trap for a tunnel goblin. This mostly involves digging a shallow hole, covering it with sticks, and arguing about who has to test it. You all agree. It's the goose boy's turn. He says no. The debate continues. Later, the group migrates to the stream that runs behind the mill. It's shallow, cold, and full of slippery rocks. Perfect. You line up and begin rock-hopping contests. Rules? Simple. Don't fall. If you do, you're banished to the soggy realms. Bonus points for dramatic screaming. You leap, you wobble, you nearly go in, but recover with a victory dance that almost sends you in anyway. A girl next to you jumps so far, her shoe flies off and lands in a shrub. You all cheer like it's the greatest athletic achievement since the dawn of time. These games aren't just about fun. They're about resilience, falling and laughing, slipping and bouncing back. Medieval kids learned physical courage early, not from battle, but from games that bruised just enough to teach you where your limits were. You sit on the edge of the bank, dipping your feet in the water, wiping dirt from your arms. Someone behind you starts making fish faces, and soon it becomes a full-blown contest. Who can make the worst, funniest, weirdest expression? The goose boy wins by default. His face is already halfway there. Eventually, the older kids drift off. A few are called back for chores. One vanishes mysteriously with a suspicious chunk of cheese. The sun hangs lower, casting gold across the wheat and smoke trails. You lie back in the grass, heart still thumping, head spinning with the day's nonsense. You chased a goose. You built a dragon cart. You staged a coup and survived a goat uprising. You insulted a friend using only vegetable names. And somewhere in the middle of all that, you laughed until your belly ached. This isn't just play. This is your whole world. The place where dirt is currency, where a broken pot becomes a crown, where your enemies today are your co-conspirators tomorrow, and where your hat might get stolen, but your joy never does. You sigh, deeply content, and someone whispers, "Want to play dead pirates in the mill next?" You don't even hesitate. Dead pirates in the mill. Now, that's not a phrase you expected to define your afternoon, but here you are. You and your crew march toward the old watermill like it's a haunted fortress, which, honestly, it might be. It creaks even when there's no wind. There's a rat that lives in the grain room and has been described more than once as unnaturally intelligent, and the wheel groans in a way that sounds suspiciously like someone sighing from the other side. Perfect pirate territory. You, a sign rolls on the way. Two of you are ghost pirates. One kid insists on being Captain Biscuit Bones, which no one argues with because he's holding the only lantern. Another volunteers to be the unlucky sailor who gets turned into a haunted loaf of bread. Again. And you're the lookout, eyes sharp, stick sword ready. You're perched on a wooden barrel the moment you step inside, squinting dramatically at shadows. The mill smells like flour, old wood, and a hint of moldy turnip. A bat flutters past and nearly ends the entire game on the spot. But after the screaming dies down, the story continues. The premise is simple. You're aboard a cursed ship, now shipwrecked in the land of grain and ghost wheels. Two pirates are already dead, but still talking. One child is half possessed by the mill itself, and someone else has declared themselves the Kraken and is hiding under a sack with their arms sticking out. It's complete nonsense. It's brilliant. You sneak through the dusty rafters, narrating your every move like a dramatic bard. Captains, log, hour 7 of the curse. The sack monster just ate Jerry. Jerry, naturally, is a broom. You poke at the shadows, creak open the wooden door to the back storage room, and jump as a mouse skitters across your foot. Everyone screams. The Kraken dies. The mill claims another victim. Applause. These kinds of stories, these elaborate, ridiculous narratives, aren't just silly play. They're the core of medieval childhood. Pretending isn't a luxury here. It's essential. It's how kids process the adult world around them. Through ghost stories, pirate quests, and imaginary barnyard wars. Historians still debate how widespread and encouraged this kind of narrative play was. But across medieval manuscripts and marginalia, we see hints, doodles of knights with spoons for swords, records of children staging small festivals, even accounts of impromptu plays performed in fields. The stories were everywhere. Because where books were rare, your mind had to do the printing. Back in the mill, things escalate quickly. Someone declares that the flour sacks are cursed relics. Another says the wheel must be turned 3 times to release the bread spirits. You oblige, pushing it with all your might until it groans like a very tired dragon. A handful of pigeons fly out of the rafters and send everyone ducking. Then, silence. And just like that, the story shifts again. You're no longer pirates. You're now wizards in disguise, hiding in the mill from an evil king. The rats are spies. The flour is enchanted snow. One child starts singing a haunting tune that sounds suspiciously like a church chant with new, entirely inappropriate lyrics. You all join in. You twirl. You chant. You cast spells with stalks of wheat. It's theatrical. It's absurd. It's exactly what you need. Then, the best idea of the day, let's build the wizard fort, which, in your language, means gathering old barrels, sacks, and pieces of timber to create a hidden base beneath the rafters. You work together without a blueprint, stacking and stuffing, laughing and bickering. Don't step there. That's the potion area. No, that's the cursed corner. Stand in the flower or be erased. Eventually, the wizard fort takes shape. It's unstable. It's highly flammable. It's magnificent. And for the next half hour, it becomes a world unto itself. You whisper secrets. You plan ambushes. Someone fakes a betrayal and gets banished to the hayloft. They leap down moments later, yelling, "I was the king all along." Applause. Boos. Someone throws a muffin. This kind of cooperative chaos is how kids learn to be people. You're negotiating roles. You're creating plots. You're learning to laugh when your castle crumbles, or when your idea for a ghost horse is met with complete confusion. But even the best wizard fort has a time limit. As the light outside starts to change, you feel the chill creep back in. Someone mentions supper. Another asks if anyone else hears their name being called. You all groan, because no one ever wants the story to end. You disassemble the fort gently, like it matters, like it lived. You say goodbye to the mill with an overly formal bow. You trek back through the field together, now quiet, now thoughtful, not because you're tired, though you are, but because there's something sacred about finishing a day like this. One where every stick was a sword, every whisper was a spell, every shadow held a plot twist. You walk past the goose pen. The goose boy salutes you with a knowing nod. You return it. He's earned it today. Back near the cottages, the first lanterns have been lit. Smoke curls from chimneys. Voices call from windows. A dog barks, low and lazy. You turn one last time to the mill, silhouetted by dusk, and you smile. Because in that dusty old building, you weren't just pretending. You were pirates. You were wizards. You were adventurers. And no matter how real the world gets tomorrow, today you lived in a story. You don't realize how late it's gotten until your shadow stretches nearly twice your height across the dirt path. The mill's a silhouette behind you now, its secrets tucked away for tomorrow, or next week, or whenever the next pirate uprising needs a headquarters. But the fun doesn't stop just because the sun is slipping behind the hills. Evening is when a different kind of play begins. As you trudge toward home, feet aching, hands smudged with flour and soil, a familiar voice calls out from the side of the chapel. "Hey, shh, come here." You duck behind the stone wall and find your friends crouched in the shadow of the building. The chapel is quiet, the bell long since silenced for the night. Candles flicker faintly behind stained glass windows, casting glowing shards of color across the mossy ground. It's time for a game you all know well, Silent Saints. The rules are simple and almost reverent. You can't talk above a whisper. You can't be seen by the old priest or the nun who sweeps the steps after Vespers. And you definitely, under no circumstances, can knock over the statue of Saint Dandelion. Again, once was plenty. You tiptoe around the chapel's back garden, weaving through hedges, crouching behind stone benches, and daring each other to touch the door of the vestry without getting caught. One brave soul manages to steal a candle stub from the windowsill and waves it overhead like a trophy. Everyone gasps then snorts, then desperately shushes each other. It's ridiculous. It's tense. It's thrilling. And the best part? No adults. Know you're doing it. That's part of the fun. Not mischief for the sake of trouble, but mischief wrapped in silence, in risk, in the thrill of tiptoeing through sacred space while trying not to sneeze. Historians still argue about the role the church played in the daily lives of medieval children. Some suggest that kids were raised to fear it. Others say it was simply another part of life, respected and integrated, but also, occasionally, tiptoed around. Either way, it was always there, looming, lecturing, glowing with incense and candle, wax. But for you and your friends, the chapel is a game board. You slide around the base of the bell tower and peer through the narrow stone window. Inside, the priest is asleep in his chair, snoring softly with a book on his lap. Someone nudges your shoulder and whispers, "Dare you knock on the door and run?" You do not, because while pretending to be a dead pirate is one thing, waking up Father Bernard is another. Even a goat wouldn't risk it. Instead, you sit quietly beneath the stained glass and catch your breath. The game settles. The laughter softens. The colors from the windows shift with the breeze. A bee buzzes past your ear. You watch the sky turn deeper blue, the first stars blinking to life. Someone pulls out a crust of bread from their tunic. It's been flattened by 3 hours of adventuring, but tastes fine. You pass it around, one bite each. The piece is perfect, until someone sneezes into a bush and sets off a chorus of shushing, laughter, and a brief but spirited debate about whether that counts as breaking the game. From here, things slow down. You return to the commons, where the older kids are gathered, not playing now, just sitting, talking, resting. You plop down next to them, legs stretched out, head resting back on your hands, and someone quietly begins to hum. It's an old melody. No one's quite sure where it came from. A tune passed down from older siblings, older cousins, or perhaps pulled straight from the wind itself. Soon, others join in, humming or softly singing. The words don't matter. Sometimes there are no words, just rhythm, just sound. This is your soundtrack now. Evening play isn't loud, it's lingering. It's the last glimmer of imagination before the world turns dark and responsibilities sneak back in. You lie still, letting the humming wrap around you like a blanket. Then a new idea emerges. Someone whispers, "Let's do the candle game." The candle game is simple, risky, and forbidden in exactly the kind of way that makes it irresistible. You each grab a stub of tallow candle, some stolen from home, some gifted from parents who pretend not to know what you're up to. A flat patch of ground is cleared. Each candle is lit and placed in a small circle. Then, one by one, you take turns blowing gently, just enough to flicker someone else's flame. The goal is to keep yours lit. The fun is trying to blow out everyone else's. Without being obvious, you squint, you lean, you blow across the circle. Someone shrieks, "Oi, that's cheating." You swear you only exhaled naturally. They don't buy it. A chase ensues. Another candle goes out. Eventually, only 2 flames remain. You and the goose boy. He smirks. You inhale. You fake right. Blow left. His candle wavers, but survives. He grins wider, and lets loose a gale force gust that wipes out both. Tie. You high five without ever calling it that, because there's no word for it yet. Just the satisfaction of mutual destruction. This is how medieval evenings end, with candlelight, whispers, and smoke. The village is quiet now. Fires are low, doors are closed, chickens have stopped complaining, and slowly, one by one, the group dissolves. Someone slips home with a soft night. Another vanishes behind a stable door. A few younger kids have already curled up in hay bales, mumbling through dreams. You stretch, your legs are sore, your hands are scraped, your eyes are heavy, but your heart is loud. Today, you've played everything: knight, bard, pirate, ghost, goose whisperer, royal advisor, and candle champion. You've made up worlds and destroyed them, gotten in trouble and laughed your way out, lost 2 shoes and a crust of bread, but gained a dozen memories you don't even have words for yet. You walk home slow, letting the stars guide you. You pass the chapel, the light is out, the snoring has stopped. You smile, tomorrow will come, but tonight you are everything. You wake up the next morning with straw in your hair, dirt on your elbows, and one sock mysteriously missing. Classic. There's no alarm clock, no sunlight gently filtering through sheer curtains. Instead, it's your little brother poking your face and saying, "The fair's today. Get up before all the honey buns are gone." You jolt upright. The village fair. This isn't just another day of play. This is event-level fun, a once-in-a-season, maybe once in a year, kind of extravaganza where real musicians show up. Jugglers balance goats on their heads, and adults briefly pretend to be less serious than usual. You throw on your cleanest, dirty tunic, scrub your face with the corner of a damp rag, and bolt out the door with a heel of bread in your mouth. The square is already transforming. Tables stacked high with cloth, barrels rolled into place, flags strung overhead from post to post like colorful spiderwebs. Vendors call out from their stalls with rehearsed enthusiasm. Sweet pears, 2 for a pence. Ribbons for your love, or your goat. Try the eel toss. Winner gets bragging rights and a lump of cheese. You're immediately swept into a current of laughter, clanging and music, and then you see it. The puppet show. Cart. It's here. The one with the painted panels, the red curtains, and the wooden stage just high enough for a child to believe it's real. You sprint forward and squeeze into a spot on the dirt in front of it. A dozen other kids are already crammed shoulder to shoulder, legs tucked in, elbows flying. The show begins, and it's perfect. A silly king with a squeaky voice loses his hat to a sneaky pig. A noble knight falls in love with a fish. There's a battle between a cabbage and a rooster. At some point, a devil puppet pops up and is immediately bashed with a wooden spoon by a furious grandmother marionette. You laugh so hard, you choke on your own spit. It's the best day of your life. Puppet shows were a staple of medieval fairs and markets, especially for children. They were loud, goofy, often a little rude, and filled with simple lessons wrapped in total nonsense. The characters didn't need to make sense. They just needed to make noise. Historians still debate whether the shows were always meant for kids, or if they were just the only audience who could sit cross-legged for an hour without demanding wine. You don't care. You're enchanted. After the show, a tumbler performs nearby, flipping over hay bales, walking on stilts, catching apples with his teeth. You try to copy him and nearly sprain your everything. But worth it. Next stop, the sweets cart. It smells like sugar and regret. Honey cakes, candied apples, bits of roasted almond pressed into sticky blocks of joy. You beg, barter, and offer to trade one of your socks for a plum tart. It works. The vendor doesn't even blink. You wander, chewing happily, and find a group of kids trying their luck at Wheel of Fortune. It's not a real wheel. It's just a circle carved into dirt with symbols scratched in charcoal. A pebble is tossed into the center, and wherever it lands decides your destiny. You get long life and many cows. Another kid gets doomed to step in pig muck forever. Everyone nods solemnly. That's binding. Then, the best part of the fair begins. The kids' parade. Not an official event, not adult organized, just children in various levels of costume, marching in a chaotic spiral around the square, making up songs, banging sticks together like drums, and declaring themselves everything from royalty to rock monsters. You join immediately. Your costume, a blanket tied around your neck, a ribbon in your hair, and a wooden spoon you declare to be the scepter of puddingdom. You're now king of desserts. No one argues. The parade grows. Kids join from every corner. Someone's goat gets conscripted and is crowned Duke of Apples. A toddler, wrapped in cabbage leaves, becomes the sacred turnip. The music is mostly yelling and stick thumping. It is glorious. The adults watch, bemused. One claps, another just mutters, "They'll all fall asleep in the hay cart tonight." They will. You will. But not yet. You dance, you spin, you throw imaginary curses at your imaginary enemies. Someone steals your scepter and demands a duel. You both flail with spoons until a juggler accidentally walks into the fight and becomes the great neutral wizard. Applause, laughter, more tart crumbs. This kind of communal chaos is what makes the fair special. It's not just the food or the performers. It's the way everyone becomes part of the show, especially the children. You're not a spectator, you're a character in the day, playing as hard and loud and colorfully as you can. You collapse onto a hay bale near sunset, legs jelly, arms sticky with sugar. Someone hands you a piece of roasted apple wrapped in a napkin made of yesterday's breadcloth. It's delicious. And as the last musicians play a wobbly tune on pipes and drums, you lie back and watch the sky go orange and gold. The flags flap above you. Smoke from cooking fires curls lazily into the air. You close your eyes for a moment, just a moment. Someone shakes you. You fell asleep, king of desserts. You grin. Long live the king. The fair lingers in your bones long after it ends. You wake up the next day, still smelling like apples and hay, your scepter of puddingdom jammed awkwardly under your straw mattress. There's a faint red smear on your cheek from whatever sweet you fell asleep holding, and your tunic sleeve is mysteriously tied in a knot. Festival magic. But there's no time to dwell on sticky glory, because by the time you've rubbed your eyes and stretched your limbs, The village is already moving. The sky is clear, the ground warm, and someone is yelling about rope games. You're up in a flash. Down by the well, a group of children is gathering with a long rope made of twisted flax, its frayed ends dancing across the packed dirt. A girl with a fierce braid and no patience is swinging it in practiced arcs, smacking the ground like it owes her rent. Jump rope time. You line up, bouncing on your toes, heart already racing. The rhythm begins. Thwop, thwop, thwop. You leap in, you miss. You get whipped in the ankle and hop out howling. Everyone laughs, including you. Then you try again, and this time, you fly. You're in the rhythm, knees up, tunic flapping. The world narrows to the beat of rope against earth and the cheering of your friends. It feels like dancing and battling and floating all at once. A boy on the sidelines starts chanting a rhyme. Lady Goose and Chimney Soot jump too slow and crack your foot. It makes no sense. It's perfect. Soon, everyone's chanting, each line more ridiculous than the last. Some about turnips, some about witches, one involving a three-legged goat named Sir Crumbles. Skipping rhymes were a common part of medieval childhood, often shared orally and invented on the spot. Many were silly, some were suspiciously dark. A few may have contained coded insults or lessons, but to kids, they were music. Music you could shout while airborne and covered in sweat. Historians still argue whether these rhymes were just for fun or if they held deeper meanings passed down through generations. Some suggest they were tools for memory. Others think they were simply the result of kids being loud and inventive with words. Either way, they stuck. You leap and land and shout your line just in time. One more jump, and then I fall. I'm the ruler of them all. Cheers. You bow, then immediately trip over the rope and nearly land in a bucket. Iconic. Later, when everyone's too tired to jump anymore, the rope turns into something else entirely. A lasso for monster hunting. Someone dons a burlap sack and becomes the creature. They crawl on all fours, growling. The rest of you chase them through the square, attempting to snare their foot while yelling things like, "Back to the mountains, you salty ogre." You finally catch them near the granary and declare victory by singing a made-up ballad that consists mostly of the word yes, repeated to the tune of Greensleeves. Once you've defeated the ogre, twice, and the rope has been declared too sweaty to touch, the group splinters into smaller clusters. You wander over to a quieter game, stones and circles. It's simple. You draw a series of concentric rings in the dirt and toss small rocks, trying to land in the center. Each ring is worth imaginary points, which quickly turn into actual dares. Land in the middle, and someone has to make goat noises at the baker. Land in the outer ring, and you have to recite the alphabet backward, which you don't technically know, so you improvise with letters like blort. The pressure mounts. You aim. You toss. Your stone lands dead center. Cheers erupt. You're declared Stone Champion of the Day, which grants you the power to assign the next dare. You choose wisely. The goose boy must dance like a windmill. He delivers, flailing arms, spinning knees, squawking sounds for no reason. Flawless. From there, It's back to more movement. Someone grabs a stick and starts tapping rhythms on every nearby surface: buckets, fences, the side of the bakehouse. Soon, you've got a whole percussion section, and the dance begins. Two kids show off skipping patterns. Someone spins. Someone else invents a chicken stomp, which quickly becomes mandatory. You clap. You shout. You trip into a sheep. The sheep is unmoved. It doesn't matter, because in this moment, under this sky, in this dusty village square, you're alive with joy. This is play in its purest form. It's motion, sound, laughter. It's bodies and rhythms and the soft ache of muscles that have run all day without stopping. You collapse under a tree, heart pounding, hands dirty, and grin wide enough to split your face. And then, like the world is on cue, rain. Not heavy, not cold. Just a soft, steady drizzle that darkens the dirt and adds sparkle to every leaf. Instead of running inside, you stay, because rain games are a category all their own. You and the others leap into puddles, splash, slide, create new hopscotch patterns in the mud, and immediately ruin them with joy. Someone makes a mud potion in a broken jug. It's supposed to cure hiccups. It smells like doom. You're soaked, happy, wild. Eventually, an older girl stands on a stump and shouts, "Rainy day song, everyone joins in." Raindrops fall on cabbage leaves, wash our toes, and tickle knees. If you slip and lose your shoe, that's the rain God blessing you. It's nonsense, glorious nonsense, and you sing it at the top of your lungs, twirling in the mud, arms outstretched like a saint or a lunatic or both, because today you're everything: a jumper, a dancer, a monster hunter, a storm priest, and even though you're dripping wet, stomach rumbling, and probably moments away from being called inside, you've never been more free. You squish your way back home, tunic clinging to your legs, every step a wet squelch, like a loaf of bread being stepped on. There's water in your ears, mud on your knees, a twig in your hair you've stopped trying to remove. You couldn't be more soaked if someone had thrown you in the river, which, to be fair, almost happened during the last goat rescue. Inside, the hearth crackles low. Someone hands you a rag that may have once been a towel, and you rub your face until it's merely damp instead of dripping. Your fingers are pruny. Your lips taste like whatever that mud potion was flavored with. Oregano, you hope. You sit near the fire and finally, rest. But you're not done yet, because now it's time for the shadow games. The candles come out one by one, tallow stubs in metal holders. A tiny flame flickers, and the world instantly shrinks into pools of gold and ink. Someone props a woven basket against the wall and angles a lantern behind it. Another crouches nearby and raises their hands, rabbit ears, lopsided, strange, glorious. The first laugh escapes like a sneeze, and just like that, you're hooked. The entire room becomes a stage of shadows. You try a bird, then a fish, then something that's either a dragon or a goat with anger issues. Your fingers become tools of transformation. A wriggling shape on the wall gets declared Sir Bloop, a legendary eel knight with unfinished business in the cabbage trade. Shadow puppets were real medieval entertainment, and not just for children. In some households, particularly in winter. Families would gather around candlelight and tell stories using hands, cutouts, or whatever they could bend into shape. It was part game, part storytelling, and entirely magical. Historians still argue whether formal shadow shows existed outside of traveling entertainers, but there's no debate that children, left to their own devices, found a way to make flickering candlelight into dragons, witches, and farting pigs. Tonight is no exception. You and your friends narrate a saga. A chicken king loses his crown, a squirrel priest tries to recover it, and a thunderstorm made entirely of fingers ruins the ending. A toddler claps wildly at the finale and declares herself Queen of Light. She's carried off to bed triumphantly. Once the laughter settles, someone pulls out a candle trick. It's the old one. Snuff and wish. You gather around as the room goes still. One by one, you make silent wishes, then try to pinch out the flame with your fingers. If it goes out on the first try, your wish will come true. If not, well, maybe next time. You squeeze your eyes shut. Focus hard. Wish for something ridiculous. An invisible goose. A tunic that never gets muddy. A pile of tarts you never have to share. You pinch. The flame vanishes. You grin. A quiet cheer goes up. Then someone tries and fails. Recoiling with a hiss and a laugh. My fingers got cursed, they declare. You all agree. Naturally. Then the talk turns to real curses. Because what better topic for flickering firelight than spooky stories? Someone begins in a low voice. Once, there was a girl who found a tooth in a loaf of bread. Everyone gasps. A circle forms. You lean close, arms wrapped around your knees, eyes wide. The stories come, one after another. The man who melted into candle wax. The witch who turned into a cloud of fleas. The goat who could whisper secrets, but only to the dead. Some are clearly made up. Some are less obviously fake. One involves a real barn in your own village, which now absolutely no one will walk past alone after dark. You tell one too, about a shadow that copies you, but blinks at the wrong time. A few kids pretend they're not scared. No one believes them. And here's the strange thing. You're not afraid. Not really. Not in the bad way. You're safe, warm, surrounded by people who know exactly when to shriek and when to laugh and when to break the tension by pretending to be possessed by a cheese ghost. This is fear that's fun. Fear that's held gently, like a secret between friends. In the medieval world, these nights were common. Cold air, dark skies, and candlelight were the perfect setting for tales that teetered between myth and memory. Kids grew up on stories of saints and demons, curses and miracles, wolves and angels. And when they weren't hearing them, they were telling their own. Historians still debate how many of these tales were rooted in real belief and how many were just creative kids trying to one-up each other in the spookiest way possible. Either way, tonight, they live on. You finish your story with a final, whispered line, and no one ever found the rest of the turnip. Everyone stares. Someone gulps. Then, silence. A flicker. The candle snuffs itself. Cue the screaming. Everyone bolts. Someone trips. You laugh until you can't breathe. It's perfect. Later, you lie in bed, heart still thudding, but not from fear, from joy, from stories, from running and jumping and making something out of nothing. The candle is out, the shadows are gone, but the stories stay with you, always. Morning returns, like it always does, earlier than you'd like, and louder than seems necessary. A rooster crows as if paid to do it badly. Someone outside is already chopping wood with a rhythm that feels personal, and through your tiny window, sunlight creeps across the straw-stuffed mattress and lands right in your eyes. You groan, stretch, scratch, and then you remember, today is market day, not just for your parents or the grown-ups who argue over this price of onions. For kids, market day means two things: errands and opportunity. You rush to get ready, tugging on your tunic and pulling your hair into some semblance of obedience. You grab the list your mother left and clutch the little pouch with 2 copper coins inside. Precious cargo. These could be used to buy bread or thread, or, if no one's watching, a carved wooden whistle shaped like a fish. Priorities. You're out the door and into the bustle of the village. The square is alive with movement. Vendors calling out, carts rattling over stone, smells of herbs and livestock and warm cheese, mingling into a scent that's equal parts exciting and slightly horrifying. You spot your friends immediately, hovering near the barrel stand, pretending to be important. Someone waves. You buying things? Or just pretending again? Both, you answer. Mostly pretending, because while your errands are real, your plans are something else entirely. Today, the goal is market mischief. That means sneaking free samples, inventing fake identities, and daring each other to barter for ridiculous things like 1 sock in exchange for a potato shaped like a nose. You try it. The vendor laughs and throws in a sprig of parsley for effort. The game begins. You roam the stalls, shouting things like, "Royal Inspector," and the Earl of Carrot demands justice. You wear a sack as a cape and challenge your friend to a duel near the fishmonger. You win when he slips on an eel. This is play hidden in plain sight, while the adults haggle over cabbage and discuss plague rumors. You're crafting adventures out of daily life. A group of kids' bands, together to form a secret merchant guild. You appoint yourself coin counter, even though the guild has exactly 0 coins. Someone draws a symbol in charcoal on a barrel, your new official meeting place. Another kid invents a handshake so complicated it takes 3 minutes to complete. Everyone agrees it's brilliant. Historians still argue how much freedom children had to explore markets unattended. Some suggest they were constantly monitored. Others believe kids blended into the crowd, running errands and causing harmless trouble with the kind of stealth only sticky-handed youths can master. You're inclined to believe the second theory, especially once you spot a traveling merchant with a box of wonders. You edge closer. Inside are marvels, spinning tops made of bone, tiny wooden animals, beads the color of crushed berries, and a doll carved from cork, wearing a cloak of dyed wool. You're transfixed. You ask the price of the top. 2 coins. All your coins. You hesitate. Then you offer 1 coin and the parsley. The merchant raises an eyebrow, then smiles. Deal. You walk away one top richer, one coin poorer, and twice as proud. The group gathers near the bakery stall, comparing treasures and tales. Someone got a marble with a bubble inside. Someone else claims they bought the wind in a jar, though everyone knows it's just air with a beetle in it. Still impressive. Someone pulls out a rope, and suddenly you're inventing new games again. A game called Run the Gauntlet takes shape. It involves sprinting through the legs of market goers without getting caught. You try. You nearly knock over a basket of radishes. You're declared victorious anyway. Later, the group dares you to sneak a pebble into the town crier's bell. You try. You fail. He glares. You bow and run. Eventually, the errands catch up to you. You remember the thread you were supposed to buy. You dash back to the stall, explain that you were studying economic systems, and receive a lecture, a pat on the head, and one spool of gray thread. Mission accomplished. Before heading home, you stop for a final moment in the shade of a fruit cart. Someone tosses you a bruised apple. You share it with 3 others. Each bite is sweeter than it should be. And then, a final surprise. A juggler arrives. He sets up in the center of the square, drawing a circle in chalk and bowing deeply. Within seconds, a crowd forms. You're in the front row, eyes wide, heart thumping. He starts slow. 2 apples, 1 hand, then 3 knives, then fire. You gasp. You clap. You nearly forget to breathe. At the finale, he balances a jug on his nose and spins on 1 foot. A coin lands at his feet. Then another. You don't have any left, so you clap the loudest. He winks at you, and just like that, the market begins to empty. The vendors pack up. The carts roll out. The noise fades. You head home with your coin spent, your thread purchased, and your mind spinning with 100 new stories. Because even something as ordinary as a trip to the market can be a full day of play. By the time you reach home, your tunic is dusted with flour from a baker's cart. Your feet ache from the 1,000 laps around the market square, and your hair still holds the faint smell of roasted turnips. But your smile, unshaken, because the market gave you stories, and now your backyard becomes the next stage. You drop your hard-earned top on the ground and give it a spin. It wobbles once, twice, and then starts twirling like it's possessed by some joyful little spirit. Everyone gathers around. You cheer like it's a holy miracle. Then, predictably, someone shouts, "Let's race them!" Within minutes, a new arena is carved into the dirt. A circle of stones, a scoring system nobody understands, and a crowd of kids, each with their own spinning object. Tops, coins, flat rocks, even one ambitious child trying to spin an onion. Welcome to the great medieval spin-off. The tops fly. Some flop instantly. Others spiral into dramatic arcs. Yours? It holds, strong and steady, like a true champion. You stand tall. Someone declares you Spin Master General. A twig is handed to you as your scepter. The goose boy tries to snatch it and is banished immediately. Then, because one game is never enough, a tournament begins. You pair off in mock duels. Not with swords. No. Today's weapons are spoons and song. Yes, spoon duels. You stand back to back, take 3 steps, and turn, each brandishing a wooden spoon like a blade. Then, you must sing a taunting rhyme before tapping the other person's forehead. It's absurd. It's genius. Your rhyme? Oh, brave Sir Fig with cabbage hair. You fight like stew and smell like air. Gasps. Applause. Spoon tap. Victory. The defeated bows with grace, then tries to trip you as you walk away. Fair enough. These kinds of competitions were how medieval kids made the ordinary feel epic. Spoons, sticks, stones, everything had the potential to become a weapon of wonder, and children, with nothing more than time and imagination, built their own little systems of honor and glory. Historians still argue whether children had organized tournaments or if these were completely spontaneous. But between manuscripts showing playful jousts and folk songs about child kings of the yard, we know one thing. Kids loved pretending to be knights, and loved even more when no one stopped them. The duels continue. Soon, you've got a court made of barrels and logs, a makeshift throne. Someone drapes an old sack over your shoulders and calls you Sir Whirl of the Wobble Realm. You rule for exactly 4 minutes before being overthrown in a silent coup led by a 3-year-old with jam on her face. She's surprisingly effective. With the throne claimed, attention shifts again, because the chickens have escaped. Chaos. Feathers fly, wings flap. Someone yells, "They're headed for the pies." You drop everything and give chase. The chickens are fast, cunning. One darts under a bench, another leaps onto a barrel, and stares at you like a judgmental wizard. The chicken chase becomes an unofficial relay. You leap over puddles, crawl through a hedge, and almost crash into a laundry line. The goose boy slips in a puddle and gets trampled by 2 hens and a duck. No one helps him. It's tradition. Eventually, with some bribery and 1 piece of bread, the chickens are herded back. You collapse on the grass, sweaty, scratched, but triumphant. One child turns to you and sighs. That was the best war we've had all week. You nod solemnly. Then someone pulls out a ball. Not a perfect, round, stitched ball. No, this is a ball made from bundled rags, tied with twine, and filled with hope. It's enough. Within minutes, a full game erupts. You split into 2 teams. The rules? Vague at best. Kick it through the fence seems to be the goal. But also, don't let the ball hit the goat. And if you fall, pretend you meant to. It's muddy, messy, and magnificent. You dribble with your bare feet, dodge your friends, slip in the dirt, and score a goal by sheer accident. You are tackled in a congratulatory hug. You both fall into a patch of weeds. The game continues. Medieval ball games were rowdy affairs. Some towns had official rules, but for kids, it was much simpler. Kick it, run, yell a lot, and try not to break anything valuable. The rag ball was common across Europe, and games varied wildly. Some looked like soccer, others like chaotic keep-away. Historians still debate whether these games were practiced or spontaneous. But we know this. Kids loved them, and villages often gave them their own fields to keep them from destroying laundry or livestock. Eventually, the ball pops. It was bound to happen. There's a moment of silence. Then someone yells, It was cursed anyway, and throws it into the stream. That's that. You rest again. The sun's starting to dip. The wind has picked up. The scent of stew drifts through the air from nearby homes. And then someone says, what everyone's thinking. Let's have a race. Of course. You line up near the fence post, bare feet squishing in the earth, grass in your toes, dirt on your face. The finish line? The big rock near the chapel. No rules. Just run. And you do. Like the wind. Like a horse. Like a child whose whole day has been one long, perfect stretch of movement and joy. You reach the rock. You tag it. You laugh. You lie down in the grass, heart hammering. Clouds above you drift by in soft, lazy shapes. And in this moment, right now you don't need a crown, a game, or even a rag ball. You've got something better. A world that lets you run, laugh, and be entirely yourself. You don't know how long you've been lying there on the grass, arms outstretched, lungs slowly catching up with your legs, long enough for the clouds to change shape twice, maybe 3 times. One of them looks like a sheep, another looks like a crooked spoon. Someone insists. The third looks like the baker's nose, and the entire group agrees far too quickly. Eventually, someone nudges your arm and whispers, let's play Witch in the Wood. You sit up. A few kids are already gathering near the edge of the tree line, the scrappy little forest just beyond the fields. It's not very big, but at your age, it may as well be a forbidden forest or enchanted realm. The adults always say not to go in too far. That's all the encouragement you need. You head for the woods. The game begins before you even get there. One child is the witch, wearing a scarf pulled over their head and a crooked walking stick that used to be part of a fence. They limp dramatically and cackle with surprising commitment. The rest of you, villagers, sent into the woods to gather herbs, but secretly plotting to drive out the witch without being cursed. You each pick a role. You become the healer. Someone else is the miller's apprentice. Another becomes goose tamer, general, which makes no sense but sounds impressive. You enter the trees. The light shifts here, filtered through leaves, softened by moss. It smells like bark and damp earth and 100 stories waiting to be told. You creep along narrow paths, whispering, ducking, pretending every snapped twig is a bad omen. The witch appears. You scream. She screeches back, waving her stick and muttering nonsense spells like, by the stink of 7 boots, I summon worms. You scatter. And the hunt is on. This game becomes something else entirely. A blend of tag, hide and seek, and dramatic acting that rivals most medieval morality plays. You brew potions from leaves and dirt. You rescue the miller's apprentice by throwing imaginary garlic. At one point, the goose tamer general sacrifices themselves nobly to the witch's wrath by tripping on a root and wailing, save yourselves, my flock needs me. You laugh so hard you can't breathe, but the witch is relentless. She finds you, cornered behind a fallen log. You beg for mercy. You offer her a gold coin, a round piece of bark, a healing amulet, a snail shell, and a goat's blessing. You bleat convincingly. She considers, then curses you with eternal hiccups. Fair enough. Eventually, she's overthrown by a daring rescue. involving a slingshot, a pine cone, and a very slippery patch of moss. She goes down with great trauma, declaring, "I regret nothing, not even the boiled squirrel stew." You bury her lightly in leaves and hold a short but heartfelt memorial. Games like these weren't written down in books, but they lived in backyards, fields, and little forests like this one. Pretend play was the heart of medieval childhood, passed down, built up, and made new every time, and it always involved a little danger, a little nonsense, and a lot of yelling. Historians still argue how much children internalized the religious and superstitious fears of the medieval world, but what's clear is that they learned by playing with demons, witches, saints, and sin, all becoming characters in their tiny backyard theaters. Back in your forest clearing, the group collapses into the grass, giggling, panting, and brushing bits of twig from your sleeves. Someone whispers, "Let's tell a scary story." Of course, you huddle close. The wind shifts. The light grows dimmer. The trees creak just enough to raise goosebumps. And someone begins, "There was once a girl who heard a knocking from beneath her floorboards." The group leans in. The story grows. A stolen spoon that returned each night covered in mud. A voice in the well that answered back. A shadow that didn't belong to anyone. You're hanging on every word. Then someone sneezes. Everyone jumps, screaming, laughter, shushing. The spell breaks, but it lingers. The story sticks in your mind as you walk back to the edge of the trees. You feel the forest watching you go. You wave, just in case. On the way back, someone invents a new tale about the haystack demon who eats shoes and speaks only in goat. It spreads instantly. You add to it. He can only be stopped with a turnip crown. A plan is hatched. You raid the garden. You build the crown. You chase a child around the yard, screaming, "Be gone, oh stinky-footed beast." He trips. You declare victory. The goat looks on, unimpressed. And then, just as you're calming down, someone brings out the prize. A large, dented wooden wheel. Where it came from, no one knows. But now, it becomes the centerpiece of the next great event. The village races. The wheel is set at the top of the path. Kids line up at the bottom. Someone yells, "Go!" The wheel rolls. So do you. You sprint after it, shrieking, dodging rocks, slipping on leaves. The goal? Catch the wheel, or at least outrun it before it hits the well. You don't. It does. The sound echoes like thunder. You cheer anyway. Then you race again, and again, until the sky is streaked with pink. The chickens are nesting, and someone calls from the house, "Supper." Wash up, this time with water, not just wishes. You sigh. You walk slow. Your legs ache. Your voice is hoarse. Your tunic has a new rip. You have no idea where your second sock went, but you feel it, deep in your bones. You lived today, fully, loudly, ridiculously. As you step through the doorway, the smell of a stew greets you like a warm hug. You sit, eat, laugh about the wheel, the witch, the goose boy's noble sacrifice. And as you crawl into bed that night, your last thought is simple. I hope tomorrow's just as good. The next day, begins not with sunlight, but with shouting. The traders are coming. That's all it takes. You shoot out of bed so fast, you trip over your own feet. Someone outside is ringing a cowbell. Kids are already bolting past your window, like the village is under siege, which, in a way, it is. Traveling traders, merchants, peddlers, cart draggers, mysterious strangers with goods from other villages, and maybe even from beyond the forest, the hills, or the edge of the map. You throw on your least soggy tunic, grab the stale crust of bread you were saving from 2 days ago, and join the stampede. The carts are just arriving as you reach the edge of the square. Wooden wheels creak, mules snort, bells jingle, and behind each cart stands someone strange and wonderful. A woman with feathers braided into her hair, a man with a long beard and a parrot on his shoulder, and a boy not much older than you balancing a tray of shiny stones, as if guarding the crown jewels. Your jaw drops, because this isn't just a market. This is treasure. The traders lay out their goods. Fabrics dyed in colors you didn't know existed. Carvings of animals you've only heard about in bedtime lies. Tins of something that smells like cinnamon and danger. You wander, dazed. One cart is piled high with bones. Not creepy ones, just interesting shapes. Jawbones, vertebrae, horns polished, smooth. A girl your age picks up a spiral shell and declares it the tooth of a sea dragon. You believe her immediately. You find your friends gathered near a cart that sells mystery pouches. You ask what's inside. The trader grins. Could be a coin. Could be a curse. Perfect. You pool together what little you have. 3 buttons, a bit of wax, half a plum, and buy one. Inside, a smooth black stone and a single copper wire twisted into a spiral. You gasp. Treasure confirmed. Historians still argue how often children interacted with traders in medieval towns. Some accounts suggest they were kept away unless errands were involved. Others describe kids swarming the carts, wide-eyed and loud, desperate for the smell of other places. But one thing's clear. When the traders came, the world got bigger. You and your crew invent a new game on the spot. Merchants challenge. You divide into teams. Each team has to invent a product and try to sell it to the others. Your item? A stick. But not just any stick. This, you declare, is a stick that wards off ghost cows. It's been blessed by a monk and soaked in onion tears. Someone offers you a thimble and a bug in exchange. Deal. Another group offers invisible socks. One kid tries to sell air from a mountain too tall to climb. Someone tries to pass off a clump of moss as a pet. A trader watches the whole thing and says, "You lot are better than most of my apprentices." You bow, deeply. Eventually, the adults start doing actual business, buying salt, cloth, dried fish, jars of pickled something. You and your friends drift toward the edge of the square, pulling your mystery pouches close like they contain secret magic. Maybe they do. One child pulls out a string of beads and declares it a royal necklace. Immediately, the group invents a new quest. She is the lost queen. You are her guards. The beads must be returned to the throne of beans, which turns out to be a sack of legumes behind the bakehouse. You escort her with great ceremony, fighting off imaginary thieves. dodging arrows made of reeds, and once hiding from a real chicken that seems unusually interested in the necklace. The procession is long, loud, majestic. You arrive at the throne. She places the beads on a rusty tin plate. Everyone bows. Someone sings a made-up anthem, and then someone snatches the beads and runs. The heist begins. You chase across the village, leaping barrels, crawling under carts, nearly knocking over a stand of cabbages. You corner the thief behind the mill, shout a series of made-up insults involving turnips and bad breath, and retrieve the beads with honor. You return them. The queen forgives everyone. Then she drops the beads in a puddle and forgets about them entirely. Naturally, by mid-afternoon, the traders start packing up. You watch them go with a strange ache in your chest, like you've tasted adventure and now have to return to plain soup. One trader tosses you a marble. You catch it. It shimmers green and gold in the light. You wave. They vanish down the road. You sit on the ground, marble in your palm, and someone beside you whispers, "Let's start our own trader cart." And just like that, the next game begins. You gather items: moss, pebbles, broken buttons, a snail shell, one suspicious feather, and the bottom half of a wooden spoon. You arrange them carefully on a plank. A sign is scribbled in charcoal. Rare goods. One wink or one item. Kids stop by. They buy things. They haggle. You barter a worm for a piece of string. You sell the spoon to the goose boy for a handshake and half a song. By sundown, your cart is empty, your marble is tucked in your pocket, and your heart is full. Because today, you saw the world arrive in wagons, and then, for a few glorious hours, you became part of it. The traders are gone by morning, leaving behind muddy tracks, forgotten scraps of ribbon, and one single chicken no one claims. It walks through the village like it owns the place. Honestly, it kind of does now. You and your friends meet near the well, each of you clutching some remnant of yesterday's wonders. Mystery pouch treasures, bits of ribbon, a marble, a feather that may or may not be magical, depending on the light. But today, the mood is different, not slow, not sad, just quieter. Sometimes even medieval kids have off days. The kind where you don't want to sword fight a goose or pretend you're a wizard possessed by pancake spirits. The kind where your legs are sore, your throat's dry, and your imagination feels like an empty cauldron. So you sit, and the others sit too, until one kid, small, serious, and always chewing something, says, "Let's build a house." Everyone looks at each other, then nods. Yes, a house, not a real one. A kid house, a hideout, a place that's yours. You head for the edge of the field, where old wood piles up, half rotten and perfect. There are broken branches, fallen fence posts, hay bundles, discarded sacks. Nothing matches. Everything is wonderful. You get to work. Someone declares themselves architect, despite not knowing what that means. Another insists they're roof captain. You're in charge of walls and squirrel defense. Very important. You begin stacking. A wooden frame takes shape, barely held together, leaning a little, creaking ominously. You cover the sides with old canvas, bits of tarp, reeds, and wishful thinking. A flap of leather becomes the door. You hang it proudly, even though it falls off twice. Inside, it's small, dark, dusty, perfect. You decorate. A crate becomes a table. Flat stones become chairs. A tin lid is the window of destiny. Someone hangs a goose feather from the ceiling and declares it sacred. Everyone nods. Then you all pile in. Too many kids. Not enough space. You squish together, knees and ribs, backs against elbows, toes and ears. It's ridiculous. You love it. This is your place. A home that smells like hay and ambition, where the rules are yours and everything you own is somehow nailed to the wall with string. You take turns telling stories. Someone spins a tale about a boy who builds a house so strong it floats into the sky and becomes the moon. Another shares a dream about a talking potato who rules a cloud kingdom. You add a story about a marble that can hear thoughts, but only on Thursdays. The candle stub in the corner flickers. The wind rustles the canvas. For a moment, the house feels real, like it's always been here. Historians still argue whether medieval kids built shelters like this for fun or necessity. But archaeological digs have uncovered small lean-tos and play structures that clearly weren't made by adults. Kids have always built things: dens, forts, hideouts, places that let them imagine being something more than just small humans in a big world. Later, you step outside and admire your crooked creation. It leans, it sags, it's glorious. You name it Castle Snailbutt. Everyone agrees the name is perfect. Then, to no one's surprise, it collapses. The roof goes first, then the walls, then everything in one slow, majestic slump, like a tired cow. Silence, and then laughter, the kind that leaves you breathless and folded in half, because Castle Snailbutt may have been short-lived, but its memory will be passed down forever, probably through a bad song with way too many verses. You rebuild, sort of. You lay the pieces in a circle, declare it a sacred ruin, and hold a funeral for the roof. Someone weeps over a plank. Another throws a daisy into the rubble and whispers, "Good night, sweet wall." Then someone sneezes, and the moment ends. Back in the village, chores have begun. Adults call, chickens cluck, a baby somewhere wails, like it's been personally offended by air. You ignore it all. Instead, you climb the low wall near the garden and lie back, staring at the sky. Clouds drift slowly by. One looks like a crown. Another looks like yesterday's goat with less dignity. You and your friends stretch your arms overhead, fingers pointing to nothing and everything, and someone says, very softly, "I like building things that don't last." You nod, because maybe that's the best part. The game ends. The house falls. The ribbon fades. But the fun, the memory, the story, that sticks. And tomorrow, you'll build something new. The next morning, you wake up to the smell of rain. Not the heavy, stormy kind, but that soft, fresh kind that makes everything smell like leaves and worms. And waking up, the village is quieter today. No traders, no goose escapes, no duels over puddings or pretend witches, hiding in barrels. It's a slow day, and that's fine, because slow days mean secret clubs. You meet your friends near the edge of the woods, each of you bringing an item of great magical importance. Yours? A bit of string, 2 feathers, and a cracked marble. You present them seriously. Everyone nods. You've passed the test. You decide to form the Order of the Forgotten Socks, a name voted on after someone finds a lone, moldy sock hanging from a tree. It's now your sacred relic. You tie it to a stick and call it the Flag of Misfortune. The club rules are as follows. No adults allowed, obviously. Password changes daily and must include the word pickle. All members must swear allegiance to the sock. If anyone betrays the club, they're exiled to the swamp of regret, slightly wet ditch nearby. Perfect. Your base, a hollowed out patch beneath a leaning tree, covered in branches and brambles. It's cramped and smells vaguely of old onions, but it's yours. You dig out little places to sit. A rock becomes the table. A broken pot becomes the treasure chest. You find 3 beetles and declare them club guardians. One bites someone. They are promoted immediately. You write your names in the dirt and mark each one with a secret symbol. You make up a chant. By sock and snail and feathered bug, we pledge this ditch shall be our snug. You all chant it together, loud, proud, like a bunch of muddy knights on a mission from a turnip god. Secret societies were a natural part of medieval kid culture, though rarely written about. Children formed tight little units, complete with rules, rituals, and often absurd hierarchies. From what little survives, marginalia, oral stories, and paintings, we know these gangs played a big role in shaping how kids learned loyalty, leadership, and how to whisper really loudly. Historians still argue whether these groups were tolerated by adults or secretly encouraged. Some even believe they mirrored adult guilds in miniature, complete with oaths and initiation rituals that involved everything from mud to mild emotional trauma. Back in your headquarters, someone suggests an initiation for new members. Let them cross the path of pain, one kid declares, pointing to a patch of nettles and thorns. No, another says, they must drink the dew of destiny, which is really just a handful of grass stuffed into a cup of rainwater. You vote. Dew of destiny wins. You take a sip. It tastes like bravery, and maybe frog feet. A little later, someone spies a squirrel. It's quickly named Sir Whiskerflop, knighted on the spot, and followed for at least 20 minutes before it escapes into a tree and forgets you exist. Then comes the grand project, the club message scroll. Someone finds a flattened bit of bark. You use burnt twigs to scrawl your laws, codes, and favorite jokes across it. It reads like a mix between a prophecy and the ramblings of someone who licked a lightning bolt. It's beautiful. You bury it under a flat stone and promise to dig it up 1,000 years from now or tomorrow. Either works. Later, as the rain stops and the air thickens with sun-warmed earth, the club heads out on its first mission to steal back the spinning top the goose boy borrowed last week and never returned. You sneak, you crawl, you hide behind hay bales and pretend to be shadows. One kid gets distracted by a butterfly and nearly blows the operation. But eventually, you reach the target. The top is resting beside a bucket near the goose pen. He's not watching. Yet, you grab it. He turns. You run. It's the greatest heist in history. You make it back to base with the treasure. He shows up 10 minutes later, out of breath and dramatically betrayed. You let him join the club. He drinks the dew. He's in. The day ends like that, laughing in the underbrush, whispering secrets about nothing, assigning everyone a new nickname just because you become the mysterious elbow. Someone else is Lord Bugpants. The sock watches from its stick, fluttering nobly. When the sky turns orange, you finally emerge from the woods. Your clothes are torn. Your hands are stained. Your knees are sore. But your heart is soaring. Because today, you weren't just a kid in a village. You were a founder, a knight, a whisperer of power in forgotten places. And tomorrow, you'll be all new things again. But the club will remain, sock and all. The next morning brings a sudden shift in mood. Not because anything's wrong. There's no storm, no chores that ruin the day, no adult disaster involving barrels or goats. Though the goat does look suspicious. No, the change comes from something simpler. You're tired, not sleepy, not bored, just one of those mornings when you don't want to run or jump or climb. You just want to be. And luckily, your friends feel it too. You meet near the tree stump, at the edge of the field, the one you've declared sacred, cursed, or magical, depending on the day. And someone says, "Let's just sit." So you do. And for the first time in what feels like weeks, you all stop moving. It's strange at first. You're so used to pretending you're knights or pirates or shadow-dwelling cheese monks that sitting still feels like breaking a rule. But then you notice the way the grass shifts when the breeze moves across it like a whisper. You watch a bug scale a stalk of wheat with the determination of a hero on a quest. You listen to the creaking of the village cartwheels, the distant thwack of someone chopping wood, the quiet cluck of a hen settling into her nap. And it's nice. Someone starts stacking stones. It begins with 3, wobbles at 4, and finally, gloriously, balances at 7. You all try. It becomes a competition. Who can build the tallest tower before the wind knocks it over? No prizes, no shouting, just soft groans when a pebble topples, and quiet cheers when someone manages 6 stones with nothing but hope and sweaty hands. Then comes the cloud game. You lie in the grass, hands behind your heads, staring up as the sky tells its slow, drifting story. That one's a fish. No, a fish wearing a crown. No, a fish eating the crown. Laughter, arguments. A sheep-shaped cloud drifts into view and is immediately declared our mascot. Someone tries to name it something noble like Sir Fluffington. Someone else insists it looks more like Kevin. Kevin wins these kinds of quiet games. Observation, reflection, imagination without movement were as much a part of medieval childhood as wild play. On feast days, after long chores, or during rain breaks, kids would lie under hedgerows or huddle near ovens, telling stories, spotting animals, watching the sky, or whispering riddles just to pass the time. Historians still debate whether medieval children were encouraged to daydream or merely tolerated when they did. But any adult who's ever seen a child spend 10 minutes talking to a pebble knows stillness has its own kind of magic. Later, someone pulls out a lump of clay they found by the river. It's cold, squishy, slightly gritty. You all dive in. There's no plan, just fingers working. One person makes a lopsided bowl. Another creates a crooked dog. You sculpt a face, then squish it flat, and start again. It's oddly soothing. Someone makes a clay king and builds a throne of twigs. Someone else builds a clay bakery and smashes it immediately, declaring a flour shortage. It's quiet play, but full of giggles. When your hands are too dry to keep going, you set your creations in the sun and lean back. You feel something shift in your chest, not a sadness, just a softness. The kind of feeling that comes when you realize how lucky you are to sit in the dirt with people who know your best chicken impression and the exact way you snore when you fall asleep under a wagon. Someone hums, just a little melody, no words. You all join in, making up harmonies and nonsense lyrics as you go. Oh, the goat stole my shoe, but I'm still in love with stew. You sing until your voices fade into the grass, and then someone, very gently, says, "Let's make a map." Of course, you clear a patch of dirt and start drawing. Paths, trees, the well, the mill. You label everything in silly ways. The chapel becomes the place of loud shoes. The garden becomes the realm of sneaky beats. The chicken coop, house of betrayal. Your secret hideout is a star. The ditch becomes a canyon. The tree stump is the heart of the world. By the time the map is finished, it's more dream than geography. But it's your dream, drawn in dirt, shared in silence. You press your palm into the soil next to the map, a handprint, a mark that says, "I was here." Everyone else does the same. Then, someone ruins it by stepping on the whole thing while trying to catch a beetle. You don't mind. The moment was already perfect. Later, as the sky starts to turn orange again, you stay seated. No one wants to run today. No one needs to. You've done enough just being. A slower kind of play, a softer kind of joy. And as you walk home in the golden light, hand stained with clay, cheeks warm from the sun, and a pebble in your pocket that looks kind of like a duck, you think to yourself, not every day needs to be wild. Some just need to be real. The sun is barely up, and already there's a smell in the air. Not firewood, not stew, not goats. Though, let's be honest, that's always faintly present. No, this is soap. Someone's hauling buckets. A group of older kids are scrubbing benches, and you overhear a sentence no child ever wants to hear. First thing in the morning. Today is bath day. You freeze. You make eye contact with your equally horrified friend. One word passes between you, unspoken but clear. Run. But there's no escape. Because bath day doesn't just mean you might be washed. It means everyone might be washed. And worse, the adults are involved. You're corralled with a dozen other children toward the back courtyard, where giant kettles are heating water over open flames and big wooden tubs sit like ominous invitations to misery. The first kid is plunked in like a sack of potatoes. The water sloshes, the screaming begins. You're number 5 in line. You consider your options: fainting, faking possession, offering your spot to the goose boy in exchange for lifetime protection. None of them work. It's your turn. You're lifted, by the armpits no less, and lowered into the tub. And it's actually not that bad. Warm, soapy, slightly slimy, but that's because 2 other kids already used this tub, and the water's gone a bit suspicious. You scrub behind your ears, while a woman with the strength of 10 oxen tries to cut the knot out of your hair. You lose one shoe, you gain a clean neck. It's a trade-off. Bathing in medieval times was a complicated affair. Contrary to popular belief, people didn't go their whole lives covered in filth. They washed, just not every day. And for kids, bathing often came in batches. A few children to a tub, the same water reused, and soap made from ash and animal fat. It was practical, efficient, slightly gross. Historians still argue how frequent these baths really were. Some claim they happened weekly. Others suggest special occasions or feast days. But all agree, when it happened, it was a big deal. After the bath, you're handed a half-dry tunic that smells faintly of mint and strongly of being forgotten in a drawer for a month. You don it proudly. You're clean. You're shining. You're damp in places that feel morally wrong. And then, you're free. And you feel amazing. You and your friends, fresh from the tub and still dripping, decide to take advantage of your temporary sparkle. You start a fashion show. Yes, a fashion show. You strut across the grass. You twirl in your clean tunic. You do dramatic poses, like a noble from a tapestry. Someone announces each look in a ridiculous voice. And here we have Sir Stains No More, modeling the latest in soggy linen, with questionable stitching. Someone else pretends to be a critic. Needs more goatskin accessories. You laugh so hard, you fall over. Then someone finds a ribbon, left over from market day, and ties it around their forehead. Suddenly, the fashion show becomes a battle of nobility. You're knights again, of course, but clean knights, glistening in the sun, prepared to duel, not with swords, but with compliments. You shine like a polished onion. Your elbows are smoother than a river rock. I would follow you into a soap vat, my liege. The battles escalate. Compliments turn into elaborate poems. Someone composes an ode to their friend's clean knees. Another sings a love ballad to their newly scrubbed armpit. It's chaos. It's brilliant. Eventually, you all settle under the drying line, clothes flapping above you like banners. Someone lays out on a blanket and sighs dramatically, "I'm too clean to move." You all agree. So you don't move. You lie there, soaking in the sun, watching the breeze play with the ribbons, the leaves, the corners of your tunics. A dog comes over and sniffs you suspiciously, not recognizing you at first. You feel like a different person, because you kind of are. Being clean feels like a costume, like you've temporarily become a future version of yourself. The type who gives good advice, wins pie eating contests, and maybe owns more than one sock. But you know it won't last. You're already eyeing the dirt path and wondering how fast you could run through it without anyone noticing. Still, For now, you lie back and let the clean settle into your skin. Later, you start inventing legends. Did you hear about the soap prince? He once bathed for a whole hour. They say he smelled like cinnamon and regret. These stories become ridiculous quickly. Someone insists the soap prince had golden toenails. Another claims he floated instead of walking. Someone draws a picture in the dirt of his legendary bath throne, which looks suspiciously like a bucket with a duck in it. And then, the greatest idea of the day, start a new religion, dedicated to the soap prince. You form a circle, you chant nonsense, you bow to a puddle, you wash a pebble, and declare it holy. And just like that, being clean becomes a game too, a joke, a myth, a story to carry into the next dirt-covered day. By the time you head home, your hair is already wild again. Your feet are bare, your elbows have mysterious new smudges, but inside, you feel sparkling, even if no one else can tell. You wake up to thunder, not the sky kind, the feet kind. It rattles the floorboards, shakes the walls, and makes the cat dive under the bench, like it knows what's coming. It's festival day. You hear the drums first. Big ones, deep ones, the kind that sound like something ancient and important is about to happen. And it is. The feast of the saint who lost his hat. No one remembers the actual story, but it involves a saint, a windstorm, and a chicken that may or may not have been divine. That's all the excuse the village needs to throw a parade, hang up banners, and eat far too many dumplings. You leap out of bed. Your best tunic is waiting, creased, slightly stained, but it still has the silver ribbon on the sleeve. You comb your hair with your fingers, grab the pebble you baptized during Soap Prince Day, still holy, and race outside. The square is already a riot of colors. Flags flap from every window. Ribbons hang from doorways. The baker has shaped loaves into hats in honor of the saint's legendary wardrobe. One of them has eyes. It's slightly disturbing. You find your friends wearing capes made of curtain scraps and crowns made of twigs and old buttons. It's time, because today's festival means one thing above all else, the pageant. And this year, you're in it. Every child in the village plays a part. Some are saints, some are birds. One unfortunate soul is the wind and has to run around in circles, waving gray cloth. Another is the chicken. It's the goose boy. Obviously, your role, you're the keeper of the lost hat. It involves carrying a giant hat made of straw, yelling, "I have it," every time the saint appears, and then running away giggling. A prestigious role. Pageants were common in medieval festivals, blending religion, folklore, and utter nonsense into one wild celebration. Kids were often front and center, singing, acting, pretending to be sheep, devils, or unusually wise vegetables. It was storytelling as theater, and the whole village joined in. Historians still argue whether these plays were sacred or just for fun. Probably both. But for the children, they were an excuse to shout, dress up, and maybe throw a turnip. The drums begin again. Everyone takes their places. The saint, a girl in two big robes, steps forward, lifts her arms, and announces, "I have lost my hat." Cue dramatic music. You leap from behind the cider barrel, holding the hat overhead like a trophy. "I have it," The crowd gasps. Then you sprint away, chased by the saint and the chicken. Laughter erupts. You dodge a flower cart, trip over a bucket, and land in a pile of old cloth. The hat flies into the air and lands on the priest. He does not flinch. Someone yells, "Miracle." The story ends with the hat being returned, the wind being tamed, the poor kid collapses dramatically, and the chicken laying a golden egg, painted, slightly cracked, held together with hope. Thunderous applause. You bow. You get a dumpling. Successful performance. After the pageant, the games begin. Sack races, cheese rolls. Who can yell the loudest? Won by a toddler with terrifying lungs. And the traditional wheel of doom, a spinning log that sends kids flying into haystacks. You land headfirst. You win. Then comes the feast. Long tables, baskets of bread, bowls of stew, plates of pickled everything. You sit with your friends, still wearing your crown. Hands stained with berry juice, eyes wide with joy. You eat too much, everyone does. Someone starts a chant. For the hat, for the saint, for the chicken with complaints. It becomes a song, then a dance, then a chant again. You lie back under the table, staring up at the wood beams and lanterns, belly full, heart fuller, because today you are part of something, not just a story, not just a game, but a tradition, a celebration, older than you, sillier than logic, and full of joy, noise, and dumplings. Later, as the sun sets and the drums fade, you and your friends gather near the chapel steps. Someone lights a candle. Another pulls out a flute. The notes are wobbly, but sweet. You sit close. You pass around a crust of bread and a jar of jam. No one says much until someone whispers, "Next year, I want to be the chicken." Everyone nods. That's the dream. Section 21, Evening, arrives not like a curtain closing, but like a quilt being laid gently over the day. You sit beneath the chapel wall, the stone still warm from the sun, your legs stretched out, arms tucked behind your head, crown of twigs askew on your brow. Around you, the village softens, people talking in low tones, lanterns being lit, doors squeaking open, then closing for the night. Your friends begin to drift off. One by one, the goose boy gives you a quiet salute. The girl who played the saint dozes off on a hay bale, still clutching her wooden staff like it might float away. You remain, and in the hush that settles when all the games are played and all the laughter has fallen asleep, you think back to the races and the rope games, to the chicken chases and shadow puppet battles, to the pirate forts, mud potions, spoon duels, and sacred socks, to the puppet shows, marble markets, cursed stew, cloud parades, turnip gods, and one suspiciously holy pebble. You remember how every stick became a sword, every puddle became a portal, every whisper became a spell, and how even the quiet days, the slow, lazy, sky-watching days, felt like a story being told only to you, because they were. This has been your world. Not grand castles or epic battles, but something softer. Messier True, a world built from dirt and dreams, from crumbs and chance, from bruises and breathless grins. And even though the day is over, you know deep down, you'll carry it forward in your walk, in your voice, in the way you see ordinary things. And think, what if the stars blink above you, the candle burns low, the village sleeps, and you pull your blanket up to your chin, yawn a little wider than necessary, and let your eyes fall shut. The games will wait. The goose will too. Tomorrow, you'll build it all again. But for now, sleep, little adventurer. You've earned it.